Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us. We'll just
All
take a
right.
couple of minutes to let people kind of roll in and get online. Pete is joining us from I think 12 hours or 13 hours away from me. I'm always getting the time zone mixed up, but
Good evening
we've been
from
how
Shanghai.
many hours is it, Pete? Where is it? What time is it where you are?
It's 12-hour difference. It's 9:30 p.m. Shanghai time.
Amazing. Yeah. So he's joining us from Shanghai and where he lives and works. And I'm in Toronto, as many of you know. But we're super excited to be here today. And actually, I'm just on a personal note excited to be working together with Pete on this. We've been friends for many years, and he is a great marketing guy. And I'm really excited to be doing this work with him. He can tell you a bit more about what he's doing, but he's been digging a lot into AI. And if you join me back in last fall, I had a fantastic opportunity to interview someone, who is an author, co-author of the book Humanity, AI for Humanity, and is doing some really exciting work. She's a documentarian as well. And that was a connection that Pete made for me. So it was a really great conversation, and it certainly led me to thinking a lot more about how we can make AI work for us, because it's here to stay. And I think it really has a lot of opportunities to further help us really achieve more of what we want to be achieving through our impact work. And I'm really excited to be here with Pete today to talk about that.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jess. And I was the second I started seeing some of the trends in what some of these AI tools were doing, I automatically thought of the not-for-profit sector. As you and I have joked before, I can attest to the pain of grant writing. I was a young and slightly naive assistant program assistant, where we wrote a couple of grants into Food Share Toronto, or excuse me, not Food Share, the Toronto Food Policy Council. Sorry, and then later I was also. I also experienced this as a later as I went back as a mature student to Acadia University. I actually was a co-writer of a grant to CETA, unsuccessful, but it was a learning process. We could have used your services. It was during the first wave of all the. It was the gender work that was being done in Afghanistan.
Oh, wow. That was an exciting time.
Empower girls and women in education. And so the thread I have here is that I am a humble futurist, and you're absolutely right to flag what I'm doing now. It follows a long line of goes back to web development. It goes back to early days of e-commerce, wearable tech, some blockchain projects, and now we're here in 2025, and AI has a lot of. I think it's a workhorse. I think it's going to be something that's going to really help grant writers, as you and I have discussed before, the donor alignment and donor identification, all those things that we're going to get into in a couple of moments.
Absolutely. No, and it's one of those things where, I think like many technologies, it's been shaking things up, it's been raising questions, but I think it's also here to stay. And I think the onus is on us now to learn how to use it and how to work with it, and how to work with it in a way that is aligned with our values, and that emphasizes equity, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and really allows us to do more of the good work we want to be doing and let it serve us. Which is what we're here to talk about today as well. And I should just add on another quick note that Pete also has, in addition to all of the marketing and tech stuff, which is great for me because that's not what I bring to the table. He does have a bit of background in terms of, dipping your toe into some politics and some activism over the years as well. So really, really excited to be working with this together with us on you. And also really excited to be launching this bootcamp this summer. I think it's going to be such a great resource. When I started Clarke Consulting, I have a vision for really wanting to kind of democratize and bring government relations knowledge, tools, and expertise to as many organizations as possible. And a big part of that is grant writing. Whether you're writing grants for government or for foundations, corporations, there's a lot of very common threads that run through and principles that run through all that kind of grant writing. And having done more than my share of grant writing during my career, and knowing the challenge of it, I think this is a really great opportunity to leverage some of the tools that are out there. And this is about kind of meeting organizations where they're at. I know that there's so many amazing people in Canada and around the world that are doing really important work that don't have the resources to hire a grant writer. They don't have the resources to hire a consultant like me, frankly, to do their grant writing for them. But they really need and deserve funding for the important work that they're doing. And that's why I'm all about wanting to try and bring these tools to as many people as possible. And one of the ways we're doing that is through this boot camp we're launching this summer. So really excited about that. And we're going to be talking a bit more about that today, about the structure of it and the tools, and giving a bit of a taste of what it's going to look like. And
can we get a shout out to some of the people that are listening on the show so far? I know it's still early in the show. If you can tell us where you're from or which organization you're working with.
Yeah, please jump into the comments. And if there's any questions you have, throughout, feel free to jump in with those as well.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. And thank you again for joining. And this is Jesse Clarke, founder of JN Clarke Consulting. And tonight we are here to launch. Actually, I'm going to let you tell us what we're launching, Jess.
Totally. Our brand new grant writing AI bootcamp, summer bootcamp for 2025.
Now, as we've been hinting at, both of us have both endured a lot of time in front of grant proposals. And I would say we're here tonight because we know that grant writing often feels like a resource draining battle against time and overwhelming competition. Competition is coming, competition is coming from things like, it can be anything from self-doubt, it can be something like other organizations, it can be trying to understand how fast the world of grant writing is moving. And I did want to also say our goal is to introduce you to this new strategic partner, AI, that is going to help you win this battle.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Pete. So over the next 20 or 30 minutes, we're going to walk through the 4 pillars of a successful grant proposal, which are things I talk about in a lot of the training that I do. And we're going to weave a golden thread through our conversation, really anchoring it in the values that we think are really important, the critical lenses of diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, power dynamics, and also having a strong lens on donor alignment. What does that look like right now? We want to really help you ensure that your proposals are persuasive and principled and really help you support and strengthen the work that you're doing.
All right, Jess.
So yeah, go ahead.
Why don't we kick off with section 1? This is our first pillar of the course, which is eligibility and competitiveness.
Yeah, so I think sometimes people gloss over this part when they're doing grant writing. It's not always easy necessarily to determine not just are you eligible, because I think that's kind of the first check. There's sort of 2 phases to this, making this go no go decision, as we call it. One is that you want to start with really looking at, digging into the eligibility criteria, which sometimes even themselves can, that can be a little bit complex. Do you actually have the requisite requirements? Do you have the experience they're looking for? Or can you find a partner who does? So starting with that, determining eligibility, are you reaching the right kind of audience? Are you in the right geographic area? There's a lot of those kind of core elements, but there's a much deeper part of it as well that I think is a bit of a harder part to do, especially when you're feeling, the pressure of, getting money you really need for your organization, and maybe facing pressure from, board members or senior staff to just go and get all the money that you can. It's hard to take the time to actually really understand, are you aligned well with what this donor is looking for? Do you already have programs that you're working on and people that you're working with that really work very closely with what their goals are as well? Or is there a way that you can maybe make that bridge for them and bring them into a new area that will be really compelling for them? Because I think it's really important to take the time to think about that at the beginning, and not just to sort of rush off after opportunities where, maybe you tick the boxes, but you're not actually really aligned in the kind of work you're doing, the kind of results you're generating, the kind of communities you're working with, the more deep way that the donor is looking for in terms of their objectives that they're trying to accomplish as well. And I think that's where both you need to really dig deep in terms of assessing that donor alignment. And also it can be an opportunity to really effectively advocate with donors around that as well.
Now, in some of our earlier conversations, when we were thinking about this course and thinking about some of the work you've done, you've come across examples where some of the clients that you've worked with in the past, they've gotten excited because they may see 3 or 4 different organizations that are offering funding for the same vertical, for instance. Let's for example, 3 organizations that are offering funding for food security. And they get really excited about that. But then, as you say, when they get under the hood, they start to notice things like the type of language that maybe isn't exactly, as you say, in the donor alignment side. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And there's a couple of pieces to that, I think, right? So one is that, just because somebody maybe at first blush is thematically aligned with you, it doesn't mean that the way that they're delivering, that they want a partner who is, focusing on one or another kind of delivery mechanism. So you really need to dig deep to understand, like, are you actually, maybe they want to be targeting, and it can be really obvious things, like they want to be targeting, youth-led organizations in rural communities. Maybe they're targeting work that you support through partners, but it's not the work you're directly doing. So it's that whole area where you want to really assess and think deeply. And I've seen a lot of examples where, it looks like, other organizations in your sector are doing something, are successfully getting funding from a funder, and you think, well, if they're doing it, we should be able to do it as well. But if you dig deeper, it might not actually be worth, the kind of changes you need to make, for example. But the other thing I think that's really important when you're developing grants is, I think just as often what happens is you have a great idea that actually will speak to what this donor wants, right? But it's a question of how you communicate about it. And that's not always an easy thing to do, is to fit into donor language and framing. But it is currently a necessity of the work that we do, right? So the work you're doing is really impactful, but you have to make sure you can show that and use the language the donor wants to see to make them understand it as well.
Right. And I think this is a perfect timing, Jess, because that strategic work, which used to take, days of potential manual research, like looking through who was giving out funding and who received funding. I want to sort of place this now in the context of the AI is now being used to cut the distance on this. So what took days will now take hours, for instance. And I think imagine having, like, instead of hunkering down for those days, and often we're talking about organizations that are low on resources. So this is one person having to wear many different hats, and they're going to be able to have an AI research assistant, basically an associate. And I think some of the tools people are familiar with, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, but there are a few others that we were looking at. One is called Donor Search, which speaks to this donor alignment that we're going to talk about in the course. And another one is Dotero, which, and actually I will do a shout out. I don't have their name, but someone the other day in one of our LinkedIn posts gave a very compelling argument for predictive AI in donor relations. And so that's something that's coming down the pipe. The successful.
Yeah, I think there's so many ways that you can.
The successful.
Yeah, sorry, Pete. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, imagine like understanding the success, the chance of success before you're even like done with your grant writing.
Exactly, and just picking up and yeah, great, Minerva, great comment in terms of, you know, definitely agree that if you want to go beyond the surface checklist, right, and to really understand what eligibility means at a deeper level, and that's something that can, you know, take time and take practice, but it's great to have it help when you're trying to do as much as you can as quickly as you can, you know, without a lot of resources. And that's where we think AI can really help, and we've got some great tools that we're going to be sharing with you during the boot camp as well, that will really help you kind of go beyond. I think what a lot of people know, like I kind of know, I got to say, like, we're a good team this way, because I kind of know some of the basic stuff about AI. I've used some of the basic tools, but I know that there's a whole universe out there that I haven't even begun to touch, that Peter's been much more embedded in, that I think can really transform, you know, research and digging into eligibility, understanding what donors want. Absolutely. And getting to the nuances, right, in terms of the way you're presenting your work. So yeah, so excited about that. And just that one element.
I was just going to say as well, I think it's about making this all accessible, because I mean, like, everyone in the not-for-profit sector sort of knows who the big players are, and a lot of times those, and you know, and the big players deserve their slice of the pie as well. But a lot of the small and medium-sized organizations, this is really going to open the field up for organizations that take the time to equip themselves with your guidance on the writing side and the relationship building, and using these tools to enhance it. So this is really what we're saying is humans plus machines. This is co-creation. This is as Suksuk would say, it's this philosophy called HASI, which is that, you know, and I'm going to be horrible and not remember the whole acronym, but basically it's human assisted. So it's using AI as a collaborative tool, understanding that, you know, it's not an us versus them. It's you know, I've seen many times, even in some parts of this course that we're developing, where we're using AI to help complement and supplement the information that we have. We still have to go back and check on a few things, but for the most part, it's been a collaborative journey.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, when you're looking at grant writing, you know, we talked about eligibility. I've kind of dug a little bit into storytelling, which is another really important element. And we can maybe talk a bit more about that as well. But, you know, you want to make sure that you're actually able, when you're talking to the donor, not just to speak their language, but make sure that you're actually sharing, you know, the perspectives of the community that you're working with, right? And you want to make sure that you're doing you know, grant writing and program design that centers on the needs of the community, not making your organization the hero of the story, right? You want to make sure that you're really adopting those principles of you know, a post-colonial approach, a community-centric approach that really tells the story of the community as the hero. But it's not always easy to do that if you don't have a budget to sort of send someone to do consultations somewhere, or to bring people together for a consultation meeting in person. Again, all of that stuff takes resources. It's really critically important to ethical work, but it's not always something that's easy to do if you don't have the resources. And I think that's another area that we're going to talk about, how AI can really help you as well.
Now, just to make sure, so that everyone understands acronyms that I've been throwing around, especially considering that I've been working alongside Suksuk and her book, AI for Humanity. The HASI stands for Human AI Symbiotic Intelligence. So nice. And that goes, not to take away from our next subject, which we're moving on to, is the creative storytelling. And just give me one moment here.
Yeah, nice. No, we can maybe you can find a good link for us to that acronym as well. But I mean, one of the things I'm excited about using AI is, as you can also, you know, use AI to capture conversations and to analyze conversations you've had with community members, not as a substitute for them by any means, but just to help you when you've had those conversations, whether they're online, in person, in previous discussions, but help you analyze those conversations and use them to craft a strong story that you can then use to secure funding to further those conversations, right? I think that's really critical in terms of leaning on that for storytelling. And I know, Peter, you've included some tools that you can use for that, and I think there are some really exciting tools that are maybe even more specifically for the nonprofit community and for social impact that we're going to reference in the course.
Absolutely. And let me just make an introduction to our next section, right? Our next bucket, our next pillar, which is creative storytelling. And definitely, and I'll try. We'll absolutely be able to share lots of different links to the tools. I'm mentioning a couple tonight just to tease everyone a little bit, get you interested in using them. But our next section is creative storytelling. This is crafting the core narrative of your proposal.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, I'll let you dive in on that.
No, exactly. And how you can maybe you can tell us a bit more about the idea of using AI as a narrative navigator for that, Pete.
Okay, well, I think this is where you're crafting your single, authentic, community-centric story, and you're going to use AI as a partner to help you tailor it.
So, like for different donor requirements, for example,
and
right?
And that gets into the forgive me, the reason you're going to tailor it is because we cannot forget, and this goes across business, social entrepreneurship. We have to personalize. These are people, these are people reading your proposals on the other end.
Exactly. And that's another area where it can help. And I think budgeting also is another area where people really struggle, especially when I've many times over the years when I've been working on grants, I have not necessarily been in organizations that had a really strong finance team that has that kind of CPA background or program finance background, which is a huge skill set in and of itself, and really valuable. But if you don't have access to that and you're trying to become an Excel expert off the side of your desk, as I've done before, you can really, it's really cool to have additional tools to help you as well. Budgeting is so important, right? So I think both that you can show funders that you know what you're talking about, how much things cost, and you have a realistic plan to make an impact. I think that's really critical. But it's more than that as well. It's more than just sort of showing showing donors that you have credibility. It's also about really digging in. It's a moral document that shows a funder what you value, and it enables you as an organization to have the resources you need to do the way you want to do it, right? And so, and that's something that I think a lot of organizations are trying to do more with less. But when you're building out a budget, that is in itself is an act of community care and taking care of your organization. You want to show that you've taken into consideration that you want to for the amount of time you need to actually spend time consulting with people, involving them. You want to build in flexibility, happen, and you want to change direction. It's all very a critical part of budgeting, is really reflecting the values of the work your organization's doing. And maybe Pete, you can talk about how AI can help us with that as well.
Well, just before I do that, I think we need to blend something here that you talked about earlier in our preparation for tonight. We have seen that organizations in the grant writing process, so focusing on the budget's one thing. Before we hit that budget, so we have tools that are going to help us tell a great story. But before you even tell that great story, who's that story going to be about is the question, I think, that a lot of, we were talking about how organizations and businesses are guilty of this as well, like in startup pitching. But I think you were discussing how it's important not to talk about yourself, but to talk about the people you're going to help and the organization that you're hoping to get funding from, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, and I mentioned that a bit already in terms of the storytelling piece and making sure that your community is at the center. And I think budgeting is part of how you can actually ensure that happens on an ongoing basis, because you put aside enough resources to not just consult, but to really meaningfully make the community, put the community in the driver's seat for programming, which takes more time. I mean, this is the thing; it's things people like to talk about doing, and these great principles. But if you haven't budgeted for it and you haven't, created a compelling case to the funder for why, including these kinds of costs is important, it makes it much harder to do the work you want to do. And that's where, I think our course will help as well. I know we're getting close to the end of time here as well. So I want to make sure that we've touched on.
Oh, sorry. I think you were asking me to talk a little bit about how AI is going to be able to help ensure that your financial story is both ethical.
Please.
It's both ethical and it's airtight, meaning that you're going to use AI to research, and things like the industry standard salaries to defend your equitable pay scales. You're going to use AI to, look at the average costs associated with your projects, and you're going to use AI to be able to defend your proposals. And so I think it's really exciting. There's a lot of tools. You're absolutely right. Some of them are known to us. The big players have AI incorporated in, like this is not the innovative side of it, but you have Microsoft 360 has Copilot, Google Sheets has incorporated AI, and then and ChatGPT, of course. And then there's other companies that you get a bit deeper in. You start, data rails, for instance. I think it's in the name. But you're absolutely right. And so our next section, and this is our last section, and we're getting close. You're absolutely right, close to our time limit here. We're going to be talking about measuring the impact. This is proving your work matters and delivering on your promise.
Exactly. And this is, I think, one of the areas where I'm most excited about how AI can help as well. When I first started using, ChatGPT a few years ago for really basic things, even just some household things, one of my frustrations with it at the time was that it didn't allow you to do much digging around references, but that's all changed now. Because as I'm always telling my kids when they're doing research online, well, you have to look at the source. You have to find out where is this information coming from, to see if it's actually valid or not. And now that's something you can do. So let me talk a bit about a theory of change and measuring your impact, and how you can really incorporate that into what you're doing with donors. And for those of us who can stick with us through this part, we have a special kind of offer for you at the very end as well. So just hang in for a few more minutes. So you can get a special offer we're going to offer for the course.
No, absolutely. Forgive me. Can you walk us through a little bit about the context of theory of change and what that means in this world of measuring impact?
No, exactly. And I think it's become much more, much more integrated and I think better understood, but it's still something that it can be quite intimidating and challenging to really get it to the level that many funders are looking for. So a theory of change, what is a theory of change? Essentially, it is the narrative that you can construct around a framework that shows that if we do, X activity, then it will lead to this outcome. And this is why. These are the underlying assumptions that we're making. If we train people, then they will increase their knowledge. And if they increase their knowledge, they're going to change their behavior down the road. I think of many different programs I've worked on. For example, a program involving training teachers. It's not just enough to say, well, we're going to put all these teachers through this workshop. You have to actually show the donor that if you put them through these workshops, that they'll attend, that they'll be engaged, but then also that they'll take that knowledge and go and do something with it afterwards. And how do you create that case on paper? That's what the challenge often is when you're writing a grant, right? And in order to do that, you have to rely on the data that exists, both from your own organization, but also just good data and research that's out there, right? That you can pull on and say, look, we've shown time and time again that if we do this, then this great result happens over the long run. We'll get better teachers, and that means that kids will be more engaged in school. They'll stay in school longer, and this will have a positive overall impact, for example, on creating change in this community. So it's not enough just to say that you believe that, though, when you're talking to a donor, right? It's not just enough to say, well, I'm just making this intuitive leap. You have to talk about why, what is the foundation, what is the data behind that shows that you're not just making this assumption based on vibes, as my kids would say, but you're actually relying on real data and research that's out there that shows that this is a correct assumption that applies in the context you're working in.
I'm really enthusiastic for this one. The one thing I wanted to mention, which of course it may be obvious to some of the people listening in, and I have been using it since the beginning, is that there's really the three pillars of the LLM world. And I've had a couple different people talking about this in my network. My friend Gareth from Frye, it's an AI consulting shop out of Australia. He was giving a presentation, and he talked about how you have ChatGPT, you have Claude, and you have Perplexity. This is one that I didn't put into my notes, but I've been using it. Perplexity is where it's going to give you rich source data, rich sources. It's going to give you, if you're an MLA fan, if you have to cite your sources in a big way, Perplexity is going to help you. But where I'm really excited about this is that the rich data is often qualitative data, okay? These are the stories, the quotes. You're going to be able to feed hundreds of pages of these transcripts in an AI, and you're going to be able to identify key themes, analyze the sentiment, and pull out the most powerful quotes in minutes. So in terms of measuring your impact, this is really where AI is going to get to the heart of the work for us. Well, Jess, there are a couple tools that people, beyond the obvious.
And Pete, you're unfortunately breaking up a little bit on that last. Sorry, you're just breaking up a little bit on that last part, but I think just to reflect that there's some amazing tools out there for doing this kind of deep dive. When you're and often when you're a grant writer, you're diving into a whole new area you've never worked on before, and this is where this can really be this powerful research assistant and associate. And we're going to go into a lot more depth in the course about what kind of tools are out there and how they work as well.
Right. Well, Jess, we're coming to the closing, and
so we can just wrap up now.
We're coming to our closing.
To really thank everyone for joining us today. Pete, sorry, you're breaking up again. I'm having trouble hearing you.
Take it away.
You're a bit frozen.
Okay, go ahead. Let's wrap it up.
For a bit there. It was on my end.
Hey, are you back? I lost you. Are we still on?
In any case, let's wrap this up.
Yep. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I'm back. I'm going to put our sort of how to receive the bonus into the comments as well.
Okay. Have you already? I apologize. We have a bad connection, but do we want to try and share out what we're thinking about?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So, just 1 second, everybody. All right. So this brings us to the end of our of the formal presentation. Thank you so much for your time. As Jess was saying, we appreciate any of your questions that you can drop in the comments afterwards or reach out to us. And then we promised the boot camp would help you work smarter, and we want to end the night by rewarding you for being here till the end, even with our glitches here. For those of you who stuck around and participated, we have a special bonus to help you get started on your AI grant writing bootcamp journey. So to receive the bonus, there's 2 quick steps we'd like you to take right now on LinkedIn. First, follow Jesse Clarke and follow myself. Take a look at our company pages, JN Clarke Consulting and Coffee Shop. Second, we would love for you to reshare the live video to your LinkedIn profile. You'll find the reshare button on the post. And when you share it, it's great if you could add a comment about what your single biggest takeaway from tonight's conversation was. And then once you've done that, once you've done those 2 things, simply send a direct message to either me or Jess here on LinkedIn. As a thank you, we're going to personally send you a special promotion code for $250 off the course. So you're saving $250 if you enroll in the next 48 hours to the Grant Writing and AI Bootcamp 2025. And again, this is a special thank you to our early supporters. Again, the promo code is only for 48 hours. And thank you once again for spending your time with us this morning and evening. All right, Jess.
Awesome. Thanks, Pete. And we'll put all the details into the comments as well. So for the next 48 hours between now and Wednesday, if you can follow those steps, we will send you a discount link. Otherwise, watch for more information on the course and how to register, coming to LinkedIn and coming into your inbox. And really appreciate everyone joining us this morning or this evening, wherever you are. And really excited about this opportunity.
All right. Take care, everybody.